We hear a lot about this concept of net zero. So what does net zero actually mean, and what does decarbonization actually mean? Why we're talking about net zero is that climate change is actually intensifying and global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. Right now, if we stay on our current trajectory, we are going to go way beyond 1.5 degrees global warming by 2050. Here in Singapore, you actually see that governments are really helping facilitate these processes by strengthening their climate commitments. And Singapore recently came out in the last 18 months to be committed to net zero by 2050. And then you start to see policies and regulations and laws that come into place that help facilitate and help drive the transformation of the economy. You will have heard of the carbon tax. I mentioned the internal combustion vehicles that need to be phased out by 2040. But you also see a whole lot of incentives, help and support from the government to help SMEs in particular think about accessing the capital that's needed in order to transform their businesses and invest in new technologies. The other piece that we're seeing, and I talked about data, is that you've got a massive push in terms of disclosure. So SME owners and conglomerates who may not necessarily know the metrics surrounding their commitments to sustainability will soon need to report on this on a regular basis to their clients, to their regulators, and to other stakeholders. One of the big challenges that we've heard, particularly from SMEs, and I imagine many of you in the room are SME owners, is that when you look at all of these instruments and we talk about what we call a second-party opinion provider and the need for frameworks, essentially you need to set up a document that you publish that states explicitly what are your sustainability goals as a company, how are you planning to use this money, what are you going to do with it, how are you going to track it, and how are you going to report on it, and what's your expected impact. And the market standard is you actually need to have this, again, assured by another company that comes in, takes a look, kicks the tires, says this aligns with that page of the table with all the text that talks about all these different frameworks that you need to, rules and regulations you need to follow. And that costs a significant amount of money. So as a bank, we've actually set up a number of sustainable finance frameworks that SMEs can then come to us and say, I want to use UOB's framework. I know that I am a green building developer and owner, and I know specifically there are 3 different things that I want to do in terms of my company, in terms of my assets. And so they can then access green financing under our framework. I think one of the key takeaways is that decarbonization as a concept is something that companies need to be thinking about in terms of transitioning their business models. And there's a multitude of sustainable financing options out there that can help them along this journey.